You have not spoken. You have not made a single sound. You have simply walked from one room into another, carrying whatever mood the day has handed you. And before you have said a single word, your dog has already adjusted their behavior in response to something they detected purely in the rhythm, posture, and pace of your movement. This is not a vague intuition dog owners have invented to feel closer to their pets. It is a documented perceptual capacity rooted in how the canine visual system processes biological motion, and the research behind it reveals just how much of your emotional state your body is broadcasting without your awareness. Welcome to Hidden Paw Signals. I want to begin the way I always do. Everything you hear on this channel comes from my own personal process of reading, studying, and trying to understand the published science behind dog behavior. I am not a veterinarian, a researcher, or a certified animal behaviorist. This is one person's learning journey through the world of canine cognition, shared with you because the findings genuinely changed how I see my own dog. It is educational content only and is not veterinary or medical advice. If you want to keep learning about what is really happening inside your dog's mind, subscribe now, because that is exactly what this channel is for. The scientific foundation for understanding how animals read emotion from movement alone comes from a field of study called biological motion perception, pioneered in the human research literature by psychologist Gunnar Johansson in the 1970s, who demonstrated that humans can recognize actions, identities, and even emotional states from nothing more than a handful of moving light points attached to a walking figure's joints, with all other visual detail removed. This established that movement itself, independent of facial expression or any other cue, carries enormous and rapidly readable emotional information. The question that followed for animal cognition researchers was whether dogs, who share our domestic environment and have co-evolved alongside us for thousands of years, possess a similar capacity to extract emotional meaning from human movement patterns. Researchers at the University of Lincoln in the United Kingdom, including comparative psychologist Anna Wilkinson, have conducted a series of studies examining how dogs process and respond to human body language and movement, building on the broader finding that dogs are unusually skilled compared to other non-primate species at reading human-directed cues, including gaze, posture, and gesture. While much of the foundational work in this specific area has focused on gesture and posture more broadly rather than gait specifically, the underlying principle these studies establish is consistent. Dogs do not require facial expression or vocal tone to extract meaningful information about a person's internal state. Body-based cues alone are sufficient, and dogs appear specifically attuned to detecting them. The component of movement most directly studied in relation to mood is posture and what researchers call kinematic signature, the specific pattern of speed, stride length, weight distribution, and rhythm that characterizes an individual's gait. Human gait research, conducted primarily in human psychology, but with clear relevance to how dogs may process the same visual information, has demonstrated that emotional states produce highly consistent and recognizable changes in walking pattern. A person experiencing sadness or low energy tends to walk with reduced arm swing, a slower pace, a more slumped posture, and shorter strides. A person experiencing anger or agitation tends to walk with increased pace, more forceful contact with the ground, and stiffer, more abrupt movements. These patterns are consistent enough across individuals that human observers, and very likely canine ones, can extract emotional state from gait alone with meaningful accuracy. Given what we know from the work of researchers like Anna Wilkinson and others studying canine perceptual capacities for human social cues, alongside the well-established literature on biological motion perception, the working scientific understanding is that dogs are very likely detecting and responding to exactly this kind of kinematic information when they seem to register your mood before you have said anything. Your dog is not reading your mind. They are reading a visual signal, the rhythm and quality of your movement through space that has been shown across multiple lines of research to reliably encode emotional state, and that dogs have demonstrated significant skill in extracting meaningful social information from. Before we continue, an important pause. As with every episode, what I share here is my own personal reading of the published research, not professional advice, and not a substitute for veterinary guidance. If your dog shows unusual or excessive sensitivity to your movement, including significant fear responses to normal walking or gesturing, please consult your local veterinarian or a qualified veterinary behaviorist, as this kind of heightened reactivity can sometimes reflect a need for professional behavioral support. This perceptual sensitivity connects to a broader body of research on dogs and emotional contagion, the tendency for one individual's emotional state to influence another, even without direct communication. Multiple studies have documented that dogs housed with or interacting with anxious or stressed owners show elevated cortisol levels themselves, a pattern that researchers attribute to a combination of olfactory cues, vocal tone, and very likely the kind of visual movement-based cues described here. A 2019 study examining long-term cortisol levels in dogs and their owners over the course of a year found a striking degree of synchronization between the stress hormone patterns of dogs and their owners, with the dog's cortisol levels tracking the owners far more closely than they tracked the dog's own activity level or other factors, suggesting that dogs are continuously absorbing and reflecting their owner's emotional and physiological state through some combination of sensory channels, including, very plausibly, the visual information present in how their owner moves. What this means in practical terms is that the version of yourself you bring into a room with your dog, communicated not through what you say, but through the speed, posture, and rhythm of your body, is information your dog is very likely processing continuously and responding to. A heavy, slow, slumped entrance after a difficult day is not invisible to your dog. A tense, abrupt, rapid movement pattern after a stressful event is not neutral background information to them. Dogs appear built by both evolutionary history and direct cohabitation with humans to extract emotional meaning from exactly these kinds of cues, often before a single word has been spoken. There is a layer of this worth sitting with because it reframes something many dog owners describe anecdotally but rarely connect to underlying science. The dog who becomes subdued and quiet when you come home defeated, who presses closer when your movements are heavy and slow, who becomes more alert and watchful when your pace is sharp and tense, is not behaving randomly or simply reacting to unrelated stimuli in the environment. They are very plausibly responding to a coherent visual signal, your kinematic signature in that moment, that the research on biological motion perception suggests is rich with extractable emotional content, and that the research on canine social cognition suggests dogs are particularly well equipped to read. This has a practical implication that is worth carrying forward. Because dogs appear sensitive to body-based emotional cues independent of what you say, transitions matter. Taking even a brief moment to physically settle your own posture and pace before a significant interaction with your dog, before training, before a greeting, before a moment that requires calm, may do more to shape the emotional tone of that interaction than any verbal cue you could give. Your dog is responding to your body as a continuous channel of communication, whether or not you intend it to be one. As I always want to close with, everything shared here is part of my own learning process and is offered for education and reflection only. It is not professional veterinary or behavioral advice. If you have any concern about your dog's health or behavior, please consult a qualified local veterinarian who knows your individual dog. No video can replace that relationship. There is a final point worth considering about why this kind of research matters, beyond simple curiosity. Understanding that your dog is very likely reading your physical state continuously, not just during moments of direct interaction, adds a layer of responsibility and also a layer of comfort to daily life with a dog. It is a responsibility in the sense that the emotional tone you carry through your home is not invisible to them. But it is also a comfort because it means that the calm, settled presence you try to bring home for your own sake is doing something real for your dog as well, registering as a signal of safety through a channel of communication that operates whether or not either of you is paying conscious attention to it. There is also a comparative angle worth understanding here, because it helps clarify just how specialized this kind of perception may be in dogs, relative to other animals commonly kept as companions. Studies comparing how different species respond to human movement and posture cues have generally found that dogs outperform most other tested species, including some non-human primates, in certain specific human-directed tasks, a finding researchers attribute to the unique selective pressures of domestication, which favored dogs that were unusually skilled at reading and responding appropriately to human behavioral signals. This domestication-specific specialization is part of why researchers like Anna Wilkinson and her colleagues consider the dog such a valuable species for studying interspecies communication. The skill in question did not evolve to help dogs survive in the wild. It evolved, in large part, because dogs that were better at reading us thrived more reliably in a world increasingly organized around human households. This also raises a useful practical question worth considering as a dog owner. What does your dog actually see when you move through your daily routine? Most owners think of their behavior toward their dog primarily in terms of direct interactions: feeding, walking, playing, training. The research on biological motion perception suggests that every movement made within view of your dog, including the ones with no direct interaction intended at all, contributes ongoing information to how your dog is reading your emotional and physiological state throughout the day. The walk to the kitchen, the pace of cleaning up after dinner, the posture held while working at a desk visible from the next room, all of it is in some measure communication your dog is very plausibly receiving. If this gave you something to notice about your own body language around your dog, share it with someone who has ever felt like their dog could read their mood instantly. Leave a comment below. Have you noticed your dog respond differently to how you walk into a room? I want to hear about it. Subscribe if you have not already, and I will see you on the next Hidden Paw Signals.